You're standing in the baking aisle at your local supermarket, and you pick up a bottle of honey-roasted nuts with a picture of a dripping golden hive on the front. You'd assume honey is the star of the show. Flip the bottle over, and honey might sit fourth or fifth on the ingredient list, behind sugar, oil, and salt. That's not illegal. It's not even rare. It's the standard playbook used across Australian supermarkets, where a picture on the front of a pack is designed to sell a feeling, while the truth waits quietly on the back in 6-point font. Tonight we're pulling 15 everyday grocery items off the shelf and turning them around, checking exactly what the label is legally required to say versus what the packaging wants you to believe. Some of these are genuine formulation surprises. Others are clever, fully legal marketing. By the end, you'll know exactly which parts of a label to trust, which to question, and how to spot the difference in about 10 seconds flat, every single time you shop. Before we start the countdown, it's worth being clear about what this investigation is and isn't. We ranked these 15 items using 4 factors: how big the gap is between what shoppers expect and what's actually inside, how much it affects your wallet, how common the practice is across major chains, and how strong the labeling evidence is. None of what follows is about products breaking the law. Almost everything here complies with the food standards Australian-New Zealand code, known as FSANZ. That's the whole point. These aren't secret conspiracies, they're loopholes hiding in plain sight, and understanding them is the difference between a shopper who gets played and one who reads the fine print. Let's start at number 15. Number 15. Imitation balsamic glaze. That thick, glossy, almost syrupy drizzle bottle, promising the deep flavor of aged Modena vinegar. Turn it around and the first ingredient is very often glucose syrup, followed by vinegar and caramel color, well ahead of any actual grape must. The viscosity that feels like slow barrel aging is frequently just food starch and sugar doing their job. This is legal because the product is labeled a glaze, not the protected term of Secolo Balsamico de Modena. It's not fraud, it's a texture built by a food scientist rather than a vineyard. Next time you shop, check whether grape must or vinegar leads the ingredient list, or whether glucose syrup is quietly running the show. Number 14. All butter puff pastry that isn't quite what the golden dairy imagery suggests. Sitting in the freezer aisle beside rustic typography and pictures of pastoral farmland, some pastry sheets actually rely on a blend of palm and canola oil with butter flavoring added, rather than butter as the primary fat. That's standard for budget-tier pastry, and it's completely legal provided the fat source is declared. The issue is entirely about expectation. Shoppers picturing a French bakery are often getting processed vegetable shortening instead. The fix is simple. Look for the word butter explicitly named in the percentage breakdown on the ingredients panel, not just implied by the branding or a cartoon cow on the box. Number 13. Deli-style carved turkey breast. Deli-style carved turkey breast that looks like a whole roasted joint sliced fresh. In reality, many reconstituted deli meats are built from smaller pieces of poultry bound together with added water, starches, and sometimes carrageenan, then pressed and sliced to look seamless, with a uniform grain that's genuinely hard to achieve from a single whole muscle. Under FSANZ rules, meat like this generally has to be labelled as a manufactured or reformed product, disclosing added water and binders. So the information is there if you look. What you're often paying whole breast prices for, though, is partly water weight and texture forming additive rather than solid muscle meat. Check the ingredients list for words like reformed, reconstituted, or specific binding agents before assuming you've grabbed a solid roasted joint, and compare the weight against a genuine whole breast cut for a rough sense of the difference. Number 12. Squeeze bottle lemon juice. The plastic squeeze bottle lemon. It's shaped like actual fruit, promising fast convenience, and plenty of shoppers assume it's simply squeezed lemon juice in a novelty container. The ingredient panel usually tells a different story. Water, concentrated lemon juice, citric acid, and sulfur dioxide as a preservative, all combine to deliver sourness without much of the aroma or enzymatic character of a fresh lemon. None of that is dangerous, and preservatives are genuinely necessary to keep a shelf-stable liquid safe at room temperature for months. It is, however, a diluted product wearing the shape of the whole fruit. Check for a percentage of juice statement before assuming you're buying anything close to pure. Number 11. Fruit bars with minimal real fruit, children's fruit straps and bars covered in pictures of strawberries, blueberries, and mango. Turn the packet over, and the actual characterizing fruit is frequently well down the ingredient list behind apple paste or pear juice concentrate, which is cheaper, sets more reliably, and can be flavored and colored to mimic whatever fruit is on the front. Parents assuming they're feeding kids a rotating variety of orchard fruit are often serving a fairly uniform apple-based base, with added flavoring. It's not unsafe, and fruit paste isn't inherently a bad ingredient, but it's rarely the exotic fruit pictured. Check the percentage of the named fruit on the ingredients panel, not the cartoon on the wrapper. Number 10. Truffle-flavoured oils sitting proudly on the gourmet shelf with an eye-watering price tag. Here's the part that surprises most people. Independent food science investigations have repeatedly found that a large share of commercial truffle oils contained no real truffle at all. The aroma instead usually comes from a lab-synthesized compound called 2,4-dithiopentane, which mimics the smell convincingly, because real truffle compounds break down too quickly to survive sitting in oil on a shelf for months. That's a legitimate technical reason for the substitution, but it also means you may be paying a premium for chemistry rather than fungus. Scan the ingredients for actual truffle pieces versus the words truffle flavor or aroma. Interrupt. Pause for a second and check your own pantry. If you've got a squeezed lemon, a fruit strap, or a bottle of truffle oil sitting in your cupboard right now, you've just seen exactly what's really inside it. None of that makes you a bad shopper. It makes you exactly like everyone else who trusted the picture on the front. Let's keep going. Number 9. Parmesan-style cheese shakers sitting beside the pasta sauce. Ingredient decks on these products commonly list cellulose powder, a plant fiber anti-caking agent, added specifically to stop the grated cheese clumping together in a shelf-stable, non-refrigerated tube. Cellulose itself is a permitted, harmless dietary fiber, so there's no safety issue here. The real gap is between the 100% Parmesan positioning and the reality that you're also paying dairy prices for an inert powder whose only job is texture. If you want cheese without the filler, a block grated fresh at home sidesteps the additive entirely, and often tastes considerably better too. Number 100. Blended. Table syrup sitting on the shelf with a dripping honeycomb graphic. Genuine concern here comes from the ACCC, which has previously scrutinized the honey category over questions of adulteration and blending across the industry. And honey authenticity has been an ongoing area of regulatory attention in Australia for years. Some budget bottles labelled as a blend combine a smaller proportion of real Australian honey with cheaper glucose or imported syrups, which is legal as long as the word blend appears on the label. The trouble is that word is often printed in a font, a fraction of the size of honey itself, easy to miss entirely if you're moving quickly through the aisle. If you want the genuine article, look specifically for products stating pure 100% honey, and treat the word blend as your cue to check the fine print for the actual honey percentage before it goes in the trolley. Number 7. Surimi crab sticks, the red and white seafood sticks that show up in sushi rolls and party platters everywhere. Despite the crustacean red coloring, surimi contains no actual crab. It's manufactured from minced, low-cost white fish, such as pollock or threadfin bream, combined with starch, egg white, and crab flavoring, then shaped and dyed to resemble a leg of crab meat. This isn't some secret. Imitation seafood has been made this way for decades and is required to be labelled as a seafood extender or imitation crab. It's simply a case of the product name doing more selling than the ingredient list can back up. Check for the words crab-flavoured or seafood extender printed near the product name. Number 6. Wood-fired prepared pizzas. Wood-fired, chilled and frozen pizzas boasting stone-oven heritage on the box. The smoky char you taste is frequently the result of liquid smoke, a food-safe distillate applied during manufacturing rather than genuine exposure to burning hardwood embers. Liquid smoke isn't harmful, and it delivers a genuinely consistent flavour that a factory production line simply can't replicate with an actual wood fire. But words like wood-fired, stone-baked, and artisan on a mass-produced refrigerated pizza are doing a lot of emotional heavy lifting for a product made nowhere near an open flame. Check the manufacturing address and ingredients list, not the adjectives, before deciding whether artisan means anything at all. Now we shift gears from aesthetic tricks to formulations that actually change what's on your plate nutritionally, financially, and sometimes ethically. Number 5. Plant-based cheese slices sat next to the dairy cheese in the fridge and marketed as a healthy swap. Many are built primarily from water, modified potato or cornstarch, coconut oil, and salt, which means the protein content can sit dramatically lower than the dairy cheese they're replacing, sometimes a fraction of a gram per slice versus several grams in traditional cheese. For anyone who is lactose intolerant or avoiding dairy for ethical reasons, that trade-off is completely worth it, and these products serve a genuine need. The issue is only for shoppers assuming they're getting a like-for-like nutritional swap. Compare the protein and saturated fat rows on the nutrition panel before assuming plant-based automatically means equivalent or even healthier. Number 4, whole grain. Bread with caramel coloring, dark whole grain bread with caramel coloring, dark whole grain or multigrain bread loaves that look dense and fiber-rich on the outside. Some loaves achieve that color using caramel coloring, listed as additive 150C, combined with the visible dusting of seeds pressed onto the crust, while the crumb inside is made primarily from refined white flour rather than wholemeal. Color additives used this way are tightly regulated and fully disclosed on the ingredient panel, so nothing here is hidden. It's simply easy to miss. Shoppers chasing genuine fiber and slow-release carbohydrates for digestive or blood sugar reasons can end up with a colored white loaf instead. The fix takes 5 seconds. Check whether the first ingredient reads wheat flour or specifically wholemeal wheat flour. Number 3. Pure olive oil blends bottles labeled simply pure olive oil or blends bottles labeled simply pure olive oil or light olive oil, often shelved right beside extra virgin. Despite sharing a category, pure olive oil is chemically refined and deodorized, a process that strips out much of the polyphenol content responsible for extra virgin's flavor and antioxidant reputation, and it's sometimes blended with a small proportion of virgin oil purely to restore some taste. This is a legal industry standard grading term, not a counterfeit product, but it routinely surprises shoppers who assume olive oil always means the cold-pressed, nutrient-rich version they've read about. If the health and flavor benefits are the reason you're buying olive oil in the first place, extra virgin is the only grade that reliably delivers them. Norm real fruit jam spreads, showing enormous illustrations of raspberries or apricots across the label. Audits of jam ingredient panels frequently show the named fruit sitting well under half the jar's total content, with the bulk of the volume made up of cheaper apple puree, added pectin, citric acid and sugar or corn syrup. All of it doing the quiet work of stretching an expensive ingredient into an affordable jar. That's entirely permitted under Australian food standards, provided the fruit percentage is disclosed somewhere on the pack, which is usually a small printed number rather than a headline claim. You are, in a very real sense, buying an apple-based gel with berry flavoring stirred through it. Look specifically for the stated fruit percentage. A genuinely fruit-forward jam will usually proudly display a number well above 50. Number 1. Parmesan cheese blocks. With cellulose casings the biggest gap on this entire list. Parmesan-style cheese wedges sold in the deli section with Italian-sounding names and rustic packaging. Genuine Parmigiano Reggiano is a protected designation of origin product, legally reserved for cheese made in a specific region of Italy under strict traditional methods, and only cheese carrying its certification, along with its distinctive rind stamp, is entitled to use the name. Many domestically produced hard cheeses sold in Australian supermarkets are made from local cow's milk, using accelerated ripening techniques, then coated in a wax or cellulose-treated rind and given an Italian-style name that echoes the real thing without using the protected term outright. That's legal because they stop just short of claiming to be the certified product. But it means shoppers paying import-level prices for what they assume is genuine Italian Parmigiano Reggiano can walk away with the domestic imitation instead. Check the rind for the official dotted stamp and check the country of origin statement before you pay a premium price for what you believe is an imported wedge. If one of these caught you out, tell us the number in the comments and stick around, because subscribing means you won't miss the video breaking down exactly how supermarket home brand products are really made behind the scenes, which is coming soon. Let's zoom out because these 15 products aren't random. They're symptoms of a much bigger system, and understanding that system is more useful than memorizing any single product. Start with what marketers call the health halo. Words like natural, ancient grains, plant-based, and made with real fruit are doing psychological work, nudging your brain toward healthy before you've read a single number on the nutrition panel. Meanwhile, the actual sodium, saturated fat, or added sugar content sits quietly in a table most shoppers never look at. Front-of-pack health claims in Australia are influenced by the Health Star rating system, but that rating can still be higher than you'd expect for a genuinely processed product because the formula weighs several factors together rather than flagging any single ingredient as a deal breaker. The practical fix is boring but effective. Ignore the front-of-pack claims entirely and go straight to the Health Star rating and the per 100-gram nutrition panel every time, regardless of what buzzword is printed above it. Then there's country of origin labeling, which is genuinely one of the strictest systems in the world, but only useful if you know how to read it. That green and gold kangaroo logo tells you where a product was packed, not necessarily where every ingredient was grown. Beneath it sits a bar chart showing the actual percentage of Australian ingredients by weight, and that number can range anywhere from a small minority up toward the full amount depending on the product and the season. A Made in Australia claim can sit above a bar showing the ingredients are only partly Australian grown, packed here from a mix of local and imported components, which happens often with frozen vegetables, tinned fruit and some seafood where global supply chains feed into local packaging lines. It's not a trick exactly, the information is required to be there, but the logo alone tells you far less than most shoppers assume. Always look past the kangaroo and check the percentage bar underneath it before deciding a product is genuinely local. Which brings us to the mechanism sitting underneath almost every item on this list, the characterising ingredient loophole. Under the FSANZ Food Standards Code, specifically the rules covering ingredient labelling, a manufacturer is only required to state the percentage of an ingredient on the pack if that ingredient is pictured or named prominently on the front, appears in the product's actual name, or is otherwise essential to how the food is described. That single rule explains almost everything you've heard tonight. A jam can be named after raspberries while containing mostly apple. A glaze can imply balsamic vinegar while running on glucose syrup. The percentage rule exists to protect consumers, and when it's followed properly, it genuinely works, but it only works if you actually look for the number. That's the single most powerful piece of information in this entire investigation. Find the percentage, and most of the mystery disappears. So here's your system. 4 steps for every single supermarket trip from now on. First, check the legal product name, not just the marketing name splashed across the front. Second, read the ingredients list in descending order by weight. Whatever's listed first is what you're mostly buying. Third, hunt down the percentage of whatever ingredient is named or pictured on the front. If a jam says raspberry, find the raspberry percentage. Fourth, read the full country of origin statement, not just the logo, and check the percentage bar underneath it. None of these steps take more than a few seconds once you know where to look, and together they neutralize almost every trick on this list. None of this means every product on supermarket shelves is deceiving you, and it definitely doesn't mean you should panic every time you fill a trolley. Most of what we've covered tonight is completely legal, and plenty of it exists for genuinely practical reasons. Shelf stability, cost, consistency, or serving people with allergies and dietary needs. The front of a pack is built to sell you a feeling in under 2 seconds. The back of the pack is where the regulated, reliable information actually lives, and it's required to be accurate whether or not it's flattering. Safety, legality, authenticity, and quality are 4 completely different questions, and conflating them is exactly how marketing gets the upper hand. A processed ingredient isn't automatically unsafe, an imported component isn't automatically inferior, and a long ingredient list isn't automatic proof of anything at all. The only way to know what you're actually buying is to check. Learn to separate those questions, read past the picture, and you go from someone who gets sold a story to someone who simply buys what they actually meant to buy. If you want to go one level deeper, our next investigation pulls apart what really separates supermarket home brand products from the name brands sitting right beside them on the very same shelf.